After lunch, after an order of shrimp chow fun from the China Imperial, I got the paper down the street and found a golf tournament on TV. The MCI Classic from Hilton Head. The course with the barbershop lighthouse behind the 18th green. After an early dinner of leftover chow fun, I watched the network television premiere of a recent drama. Not so much a sleeper, as they say, but more of a snoozer. And eventually I was asleep again. Monday at the office, I told my boss the terrible story of Tony's death, and he asked if I needed more time off. I stoically declined. It's hard losing someone you know so well, I explained. But I would deal with it and try to keep moving. Work would help me take my mind off it. The whole week I accomplished almost nothing, mostly out of pure boredom, and my boss did nothing about it. One day I organized computer directories and shuffled files. Another day I spent the whole morning staring out the window at the thin slice of runway and counted all the planes that went by. 87 in an hour before I lost count. I also tried to guess whether most of the planes were taking off or landing, but couldn't. The view was too limited. They appeared horizontal in a flash and then were gone, though the roar of their engines continued out of sight. On Wednesday, the phone on the desk rang, and it was Carol. She called to say that Tony's service was at 10 a.m. Friday morning at the Jacob Shane Funeral Home on Canal Street. Great, I told her, though probably an inappropriate word to choose. Come if you want to, Michael, Carol said. I just wanted to let you know when it was. I will, I said, and I wanted to be supportive. Good, responded Carol. I like that. She paused and then added, I'm sure Tony would, interrupting Carol, not really on purpose. I wanted to tell her that I knew the first of the month was approaching, and that I'd bring her the rent by the end of the week. Okay, Michael. I guess I'll see you soon, she said, ending the conversation with grace and clicking off. The funeral was how I imagined it would be. Sad. There were pictures of Tony on all the side tables, some going back 20 and 30 years. Tony as a child on a bike. Tony with a group of people that looked to be his parents and siblings. Tony and Carol, both a little younger looking, standing in front of St. Louis Cathedral some years earlier. Tony in a wicker chair on somebody's porch. Tony in a blue and gold football uniform, smiling broadly as he was in most of the photos. His family had come from out of town and had combined forces with Carol to collect and display the Tony pictorial. Carol stood in the back and received warm embraces from people, as though she were Tony's honorary widow. Several people whom I recognized to be Tony's family members from the pictures sobbed uncontrollably. They clutched Carol like they were clutching a slippery life raft. This made Carol cry each time she was hugged like this, or in turn hugging someone else. I made Carol aware of my presence by standing toward the back, but maintained a respectful distance. Whether or not Carol ever told Tony's family about her pregnancy is still to this day a mid-city mystery. They were all from out of town. At first I figured she would definitely tell them, but with further thought, I considered how it might complicate things unnecessarily for her. They might insist she make trips to see them, or might come to New Orleans more than Carol wanted them there. That weekend following the funeral, some of Tony's family met Carol at his apartment, and together they all went through the house to give it a look over. A grisly business, no doubt. Closing and packing up a life. Something I was definitely happy not to be a part of. They were in and out in 10 minutes, and Monday morning a moving truck pulled up. By Monday night, the place is empty, with a wide open front door. Tuesday morning, a brother-in-law of Tony's from Chicago drove the Bronco off. The Cadillac, I learned months later, was abandoned. On Carol's orders, within days of the accident, Phyllis made a call and donated it to the towing company that had pulled it off the levee. Early the following week, I was reminded of something and realized I still owed Carol the May rent. After work that Monday or Tuesday, I walked to Bienville to drop off the check in person, rather than waste the stamp, or worse yet, get back in the car after the commute. Bienville was noisy but alive. The low, smooth rumble of rush hour traffic was relaxing. It provided a healthy sonic background to the otherwise erratic and choppy sounds of the afternoon. Cars and the sounds after cars. Kids behind houses. A traffic helicopter fading towards the highway. The rear door of the FedEx truck rattling down after a drop-off. Also the faint pulsing of a muted, invisible jackhammer a few blocks away somewhere. When I got to Carol's office, she was standing on the porch. She looked a bit shaken, as if something bad had just happened. Hey, how are things? Oh, so-so, I guess. Just so-so? I'm sad, Michael, she began. I'm very, very sad. She dropped her head and sat down on the top step. Then she continued. Tony was a pretty amazing guy. He was amazing in ways that nobody will ever know about. A few seconds passed, and then Carol looked down again. You would have liked him, Michael, she said next. If you'd gotten to know him better, you really would have liked him. I did like him, I protested lightly, but then noticed she wasn't listening. She wiped her hands on a paper towel and stared across the street. First up to the left, then down and to the right. People didn't know how much I loved him, Michael. Sure they did. You know something? I was a jerk for not marrying the guy. She shook her head, then shot a glance toward the treetops. And now look. Oh, no you weren't, Carol. I was a jerk. A goddamn jerk. All this might not have happened. This mess. And that was that. Maybe a certain amount of guilt would have to come and go. Run its course, if that's what it was. There was certainly nothing I would say that would provide any magic elixir. It was a toxic, bittersweet fruit that had to be tasted. Maybe even savored. Perhaps for the painful softness. Missing the departed. It was a conversation with the self, I figured. Not to be discouraged or interrupted. So I stuck the folded check on Carol's desk and excused myself back out onto the sidewalk. Appreciating my motives, I thought at the time, she'd let me go without a protest. And that was it for a while. In time, I quit my unexciting job at EdTech for a couple of reasons. Firstly, they never hired the new person for my department, as they had promised they would. And secondly, I was offered a new, more exciting job downtown with one of the local TV stations. Producer's assistant. A job I learned about and subsequently got hired for through a connected friend of Carol's who'd been at the department. I also started going out more. Carol said it would be good for me, but the results of that aren't quite in yet. It's a great way to meet people, Carol said earnestly, ironically I thought, on a hot afternoon in mid-July. We were walking through Harry's Ace Hardware on a Saturday, looking at car waxes and supplies. Of course it is, I told him. Of course it's a great way to... I'm serious. Carol cut me off. You have to live life, Michael. Don't forget that. You have to live it. Don't ever be afraid. Her outburst took me off guard. And so we try to do as we've been instructed, though one can interpret such statements in any way one chooses. First and foremost, I remember the words. I keep them close by as reminders. We all need our reminders, I think. Just as Carol has her own now. A friendly little girl she calls her love child, affectionately known to many in mid-city circles as the raucous, rabble-rousing Antonia.